Welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Hey, and welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. This is Eric Stopper. Today's episode is brought to you by Buy Box Experts. Buy Box Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. We've got a team of consultants. I am one of them. And to be completely honest, everybody at least needs to bounce ideas off of someone else. If you're working remotely right now and you're not really super engaged with your marketing team and you just need some insight for Amazon, seriously, come and talk to us. Like, this is what we're doing all day. We're keenly dialed into Amazon, and we have insight about all the different international platforms as well as US. And we've been doing a lot with Walmart recently. Thanks actually to our partners at Kenshu. This episode, I am pleased to bring Peter Phillips, Sales Director of E-commerce at Kenshu, onto the show to talk about Prime Day 2020. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. It's good to be here.
So the first thing that I want to talk about is the kind of timing around all of this. Because a lot of the brands that come to me are thinking like, okay, we got to be ready for Prime Day. And they've been asking themselves that question since like last Prime Day. And so the Prime Day in India has already happened. So we know it's rolling out. But what are some of the critical timelines that you would suggest to brands? And when is it too late for somebody to actually like be ready for Prime Day and have all the boxes checked?
Yeah, good question. And, I think everybody's sort of been guessing at this, and there's obviously been a few leaks out of Amazon around different dates, and it's been rescheduled and pushed back a couple times. But I think at this point, we're pretty confident it's going to be in the first week of October, likely the 5th or the 6th. So in terms of timing to prepare for Prime Day, I mean, it's now. I think that, we've been hearing you need to get your inventory in by, the end of September. And in talking with you and some of our partners, we've heard that, there's already some delays in getting FBA shipments processed. So I think right now, if you're a seller, you need to be pushing your inventory into FBA for Prime Day. And get ready not only for that, but Prime Day looks like it's just going to be an extension of the holiday shopping season at this point. So it's not going to stop after Prime Day. That's just the beginning, and then Cyber 5 is going to be coming right on its heels. So get ready now, get your inventory in now. If you're a vendor, bug your vendor manager to get those POs cut. Because it's got to get in there and get processed, especially when you think about the backlogs they've had from the pandemic and everything else that's happened this year.
So that's interesting that you bring up these relationships with vendor managers. I have found them to be fickle creatures, right? These are folks at Amazon. I've also done a little bit of research, and I found that some of the vendor managers are like, they're like MBA students at Yale and Harvard and Carnegie Mellon, and the churn is just crazy. I'm wondering, from your experience dealing with vendor managers, right, what is the best way to like get in touch with them and to have that communication so that you don't have any of these weird breakdowns that cause issues in like your customer experience and your customer journey and your inventory?
Yeah, it's a tricky question. And I'll say, at Kenshu, where I've been for the last year and a half plus, I don't have a whole lot of contact with the vendor managers, but previously in a different role at another company, I did have some work that involved dealing with operations and vendor managers. And I think that the squeaky wheel gets the grease sometimes at Amazon. I mean, the hands off the wheel initiative, if you're not big enough, it's going to be an uphill battle regardless. But if you have their contact information, I mean, get with them, and having just a solid, strong relationship overall is going to be helpful. But at the same time, to your point, they're in the job 12 to 18 months, and then they either move on from Amazon or they move up in the ranks. And the soft skills set for that job is not something that is leveraged very much on the Amazon side, because they're just looking at a spreadsheet that is calculating contribution margin from each individual ASIN, each individual product that you sell them. So I think if you want to have a good relationship with them, one, you got to have products that are profitable for them to sell. And that can be challenging sometimes because they're always asking for, additional funding in their vendor terms across, all the different aspects that go into that. And so I think that in building that relationship, try to stay profitable. And then when you have a question or you have a need, see if you can align that with their incentives, which are going to be to sell more products profitably. And if you can do that, then I think you'll get some help and get some attention. If you can't, then by and large, they're just going to put a line through that item on the spreadsheet, and you might not get a whole lot of help. But I don't know if you've had different experience and have other tactics.
I think the thing that I would point to as the biggest breakdown with vendor managers is the transition between them. Right, if we know that they're going to be 12 to 18 months apart from each other, and that's just kind of a general rule of thumb. I've seen vendor managers last like 2 months, right? They just quit Amazon because they realize, like, screw this, like, this is awful. But being able to nail the communication between when the person like tells you that they're leaving, and establishing a good relationship so that they feel comfortable in telling you that. Even stating that, saying, hey, like, I'm really excited to work with you, right? The first time that you meet your new vendor manager, or maybe you step into a new role and you meet the vendor manager, just saying, like, look, I know that you're an ambitious person. You're probably going to be out of this role. So when you leave, right, I would love to just get an email introduction, making a really smooth transition, because we can't afford to, like, have any balls dropped, and I'm really putting a lot of trust in you. And the human side of these vendor managers, I think, is going to kick in. And that's the other thing too, is realize that these people, just like the customer service team that everybody despairs about, they're human beings. And so the more you treat them as equals that have value, the more willing they're going to be to try to rush your products in for Prime Day, right? Like, if you need to get a PO on the books and they think that you're mean, they're not going to be particularly willing to pick up the phone for you. So just like a few little things there. At the end of the day, though, you're at their mercy, and sometimes they'll miss it, and it could be rough for you. But that's what I would add to that. So that actually gives me kind of a good transition, because if their incentives are profitability, a lot of sellers and vendors that come to me are worried that if they, use the lightning deals and the Prime Day deals and they advertise really heavy, they're worried about two things. Number one, that their cost of acquisition is going to go way up because everybody is dumping their money into Amazon advertising. And the second thing is that they're discounting so much that they're not going to get any margin. They're just not going to make any money on those sales. And so let's talk about that. First, let's talk about the advertising thing. What would you talk to sellers? What would you say to sellers who are a little reluctant to maybe get involved with Prime Day, who are worried about their acquisition costs going up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a legitimate concern, and at the same time, it's sort of a necessary investment. Kinshu, we support a number of different channels: Google on search, for example, Facebook on social, and Amazon for e-com, among others. And when we're comparing to those different channels, right, like Google ads, you can invest a bunch of money and you can get the number one position for a given keyword and get a bunch of clicks, but that's not necessarily going to impact your organic ranking, right? I mean, Google's going to determine your relevancy and surface your website when they deem it appropriate. And with Amazon, their A9 algorithm is a little bit different, right? It's really looking at your velocity, your sales velocity, and taking into account your overall conversion rate, inclusive of paid conversions, meaning if I ran an ad and then somebody clicked and purchased that product. So I think if you decide that it's too great an investment, or you've got to risk too much margin in order to be there on Prime Day, then what you risk losing is a lot of velocity. Not only because you pull back on advertising, but you're pulling back on advertising at one of the most important times of year on Amazon, because there is going to be so much traffic. So I think that you can take a precise approach and focus your ad spend on those products where maybe you have a little bit more margin, and then as well focus on keywords that are performing really well. If you have keywords that aren't performing as well in a given campaign, then you better get those out before Prime Day, because you're going to end up spending budget unnecessarily against them at a time that you're discounting your product more than you typically would. But overall, if you sit that out, then you lose the momentum that you would have gained during a time when there is a ton of traffic on Amazon and people are shopping and buying. So in my opinion, for most advertisers, for most brands, it makes sense to invest in Prime Day and then see the benefits coming out of that in additional sales after that promotional period is over. But if you have some products where you think it's really not converting very well, or it's not very profitable, then maybe you pull those out of the campaigns and you focus on the products that are going to really give you the most revenue in advertising.
Let me throw a curveball at that idea, because on paper it seems like let's say that I'm selling like soda, right, or some water product. Heavy, my FBA fees suck, right? It's just the worst thing for me. And my vendor manager comes to me and they're like, "Yo, cool, we can get like a 20% discount." And you're like, "Oh man, I don't have 20% margin to even mess with." I almost feel like it would make more sense to just get one product in somebody's house and let them be exposed to my brand. Almost prioritizing non-brand traffic and just getting like one small unit that I just completely lose money on to establish, a little bit of mind share in my customers day. Like, oh, I got this really like this 5-pack of little coffee inserts and I want to reorder these. And the only way that I got it there was with this Prime Day deal that somebody was willing to take a chance on, and I got it into their home, and then they're willing to repurchase that item. What do you think about that strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is it's very viable for businesses that can take that risk, and I think it's a very typical approach in CPG, right? Most CPG companies, you're going to have an array of products, and let's continuing with your example of, maybe a soda or like, coffee products or energy juices or drinks right now are really popular. And what you see a lot of people doing is, the consumer is used to buying that canned beverage, the canned energy drink. So you might sell that at a loss and get it into their home to get your brand in front of them, like you mentioned. And then, hopefully get them on maybe Subscribe and Save or something that with scale you can be more profitable. Or alternatively, what we're seeing a lot of people do is start to promote, powders that you can then sell to that customer, and they can, order the powder and it'll be cheaper for them and it's way cheaper for you to ship. And so then you can, make it at home and you've got your energy drink and everybody wins if you can sort of get them to then look at other products within your catalog. And I think that brand familiarity can definitely help achieve that goal.
I think for the brands who are selling these CPG products, first of all, like checkbox number one is make sure you have Subscribe and Save set up. If you're going to run a deal on something, if you want a large lifetime value out of that transaction, a $5 click is worth it when that person is signed up to get your product at $10 a pop for 6 months. It makes a lot more sense. So continuing in the same vein, right? if I'm a brand owner, or even I'm just like, running an account for a brand, like a lot of the people who listen to this show, I've got to decide which of my products I'm going to focus on. So we've talked a little bit about margin. We've talked about, if you can get a smaller version of your product in someone's home to get them into your brand, those are a few considerations. But when you're looking at your whole product array, what are some of the metrics that you would direct people's eyes to consider prioritizing which products get the promotions and get the juice of your marketing campaigns?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I would approach that is to focus on ASINs that are within striking distance of, being on the first page or being in the top 10 or even being in the top slot, the best seller for a subcategory. And in part, I would focus there because, a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So if you get one of your products into the top position or into the top 10, that's going to help your whole catalog. And then with that individual product, as we're trying to figure out, how should we invest, if you're getting, if you're within that striking distance that we talked about, right? Like I'm almost on page 1, or I'm gonna get into the top 10. Those types of moves are incredibly valuable. And I mean, we work with on the tech side with Profitero on some mutual clients. I'm sure you're familiar with them. And, they have done a little bit of research around this, and like moving from page 2 to page 1, we'll see in their analysis. So we saw like a 50% increase in sales. And if you can get into a top 10 spot, we're talking more like high 80s increase in sales. And then we already talked a little bit previously about optimizing toward popular keywords versus less popular keywords in your advertising. And I think that by doing that, by placing your priority on those ASINs that are already performing well, but there's marginal room for improvement, and that marginal room is really meaningful when we're talking about page 2 to page 1, or getting above the fold. So that's where I would focus most of my energy and a significant amount of budget to start with, and then optimize the rest of the catalog until you've basically used up all of your marginal opportunity on sponsored products.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those perfect spots to plug Kenshu, because you've got like the share of voice tool that y'all have. Oh my gosh, how tremendous, right? To be able to tell how much of a given keyword you get exposure for, and just being able to visualize all of that data is huge for any brand that's trying to move from page 3 or 2 to page 1, or from page 1 bottom to the top of the page. Indispensable. If you've never heard of that, by the way, if you're listening, come check it out, right? They're happy to demo for you, and I'm happy to show you the tool. I think it's a game changer in the industry. So on this note of like moving from page 2 to page 1, that begs the question of like the Amazon's choice and the bestseller badges. Can you talk to me a little bit about the value that these badges have during Prime Day, and how to get them? Right, I feel like they're Mario coins, like the mushroom. You can grow your sales huge if you just have this little thing. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So I mean, that bestseller badge is always going to be valuable, and even more so during a time like Prime Day. I think to start, you have to have good fundamentals with your content, your listing optimization, a lot of the types of work that you guys provide to our mutual clients, like getting that organic side really nailed down, which you guys do so well. So I think you have to start there. Like if that's not all squared away, if you're not retail ready, quote unquote, as Amazon describes, with well formatted titles, and you don't have at least 4 product images, and if you have any stock issues, Prime eligibility, A+ content, like all of those things have to be squared away first. And then once you've done that, I think then you can move on to some of the advertising activities that are going to help boost your rank. So, toward the beginning of the call, we were talking about, Amazon versus Google, and sales velocity really matters for your organic rank on Amazon. So we can impact that with advertising. And I would suggest using all of Amazon's advertising products to get you there, and doing so in a strategic fashion. So, sponsored products, sponsored brands, that's Kenshu's bread and butter. We've always been focused on search. We support DSP reporting. And, then you've got things like deal of the day or lightning deals. So I think, if you want to grab that badge during a specific time, such as Prime Day, you're going to need to run lightning deals and deal of the day around that time. Running up to it, I would probably invest in DSP. And then, as it gets closer, I would really double down on search ads, sponsored products. Make sure you're using top of bid search adjustment, and focusing budget, in a way that is going to drive the sales of this particular product. And that really just means, rinse, wash, repeat. So, you've already done all of these things. Well, now you got to go back and make sure that your optimization, your listing optimization is still up to snuff. And you got to use, a tool like Kenshu's Brand Insights dashboard for share of voice to see have the popular keywords been changing, or is a new keyword trending, and adjust bids appropriately for that. So, I think you got to take a holistic approach. It's got to have that, good fundamentals standing from an operational and content health perspective. And then you layer on advertising. And once you get that sales velocity with the right conversion rate, then, you can get up to that bestseller badge.
And the bestseller badges are keyword specific. Is that right? Or are they just like generally you get it once you hit a certain threshold of sales?
So I think the way Amazon assigns them is based on relevancy and sales velocity, and you can impact those things with advertising.
I mean, all of this stuff, right? Like for the people who are listening, like what in the world? Like this is so much to bite off. These things can be prioritized, and I think where I would suggest everybody goes is reach out to Kenshu. Reach out to BuyBox experts, come and talk to us, and we can help you plan for this. You're not too late. If you're thinking that you're going to be able to send an inventory in a few weeks and be able to be one of the ships that rises with the wave, you're wrong. You got to get in there quick. You need to start making these plans soon. So come and talk to me and Peter and the other members of our team, and we can definitely help you out. Peter, should I just send everybody to kenshu.com? What's the best way for them to get a hold of y'all?
Yeah, we've got request a demo form on kenshu.com if you want to take that route. And there's of course also our joint marketing page, which I believe is, give me one moment here. It is a Kenshu address. Do you know that off the top of your head? I'm pulling it up.
I do, yeah. So the page for BuyBox experts and Kenshu, you just sent it to me a second ago. That's funny, but it's lost in the mix.
I think it's kenshu.com/partner/buy-box-experts.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll throw it in the link for the notes on the show. But kenshu.com/partner/buy-box-experts. Go and check it out. Go to buyboxexperts.com, click on the free listing analysis button. You'll be connected with me or a member of my team. Go and reach out to Peter. They have a request a demo section of their page. There's a lot to this, and we're steeped in Amazon and all these other platforms. And so we'd love to help you work on your strategy for Prime Day in Q4. I've got this cool tool that I have now that allows me to see how much of your advertising spend is being wasted on keywords that didn't generate any sales in the time period that you're looking at in your search term reports. And so one strategy that you might consider is taking some of the brand awareness, right? Some people call that brand awareness spend, taking some of that spend and just doubling down on the keywords that are already working and developing a strategy on a keyword basis for the ASINs that have these discounts on them. Come and talk to me about it. I'd love to help you out with the tool. But Peter, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric.
To finish today's podcast, I want to share some final thoughts. For third-party sellers to be successful on Amazon, you've got to get reviews. We at BuyBox Experts are really big fans of the team over at eComEngine and its tools that help Amazon sellers simplify the process of soliciting reviews from customers who purchase their products. For more information, go to ecomengine.com. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.